It was a damp and drizzly morning when the children ran to the old barn at Scatterbrook Farm to tell Worzel Gummidge and Aunt Sally about the dance in the village hall.
"Oh, most interesting," declared Aunt Sally. "I happen to be very partial to dancing. I have danced before the crowned heads of Europe, you know."
Sue shook her head. "I don't think it's that kind of a dance, Aunt Sally." Worzel Gummidge snorted.
"What are you blithering on about? There's only one sort of dancing, round and round and round."
Aunt Sally looked down her painted nose at him.
"And what do you know about it, pray? You can hardly walk properly, let alone dance, so don't pretend you can."
The Scarecrow's mouth dropped open at the insult, and then snapped firmly shut as he went rigid.
"Oh, now look what you've done," cried Sue. "You've made him sulk. He'll be like that for hours now. You're rotten to him, Aunt Sally. I think you're awful and mean and spiteful."
In retaliation, Aunt Sally promptly stiffened and went into a sulk of her own.
"Huh, now they're both at it,"
said John sourly.
"Well, do them good. Come on, let's tell Daddy's taking us to the dance tonight."
Big deal," muttered John, who wasn't looking forward to it one bit. When the rain eased off and gave way to a pale, bright morning, Aunt Sally strode out of the barn and marched off down the lane with a tetchy Worzel Gummidge at her heels.
"If I am to go to the dance, I shall need fine clothes. I certainly can't go in these rags."
"Well, you can go in a potato sack for all I care."
"And, of course, you'll need fine clothes, too."
"Fine clothes? For old Worzel? Ha! You're having me on. Where would I get fine clothes off of from?"
"It so happens,"
replied Aunt Sally, holding up an imperious hand to stop the little bus that pottered through the village,
"that I know the very place."
The bus took them slowly to the nearby town, where Aunt Sally led the way out of the bus station and through the back streets to a big red-brick Victorian building.
"Here, what's that up there, then, eh?"
"That is a museum," said Aunt Sally, striding creakily across the road and up the steps. She led the Scarecrow through the warren of halls to the costume galleries, where she stopped suddenly and pointed.
"There!"
she cried. Worzel Gummidge gaped open-mouthed, for in front of them on a low dais, a line of stiff shop-window dummies stretched down the room in all the costumes of the last 400 years, frozen like statues in some eternal dance.
"Oh, them's fine clothes and no mistake."
"Well, I have worn better, but they'll just have to do. Get them off."
"Right-yo. Here you are, Aunt Sally. This one's yours, and this one's mine. Oh, you'll look a picture in that there frock and no mistake."
"Oi!"
cried an attendant, coming into the room to see what they were up to.
"Here, you two! What are you doing with them costumes?"
But it was too late. Worzel Gummidge and Aunt Sally were already galloping out of the other door. That evening the village hall looked almost beautiful. Gaily coloured streamers and bunting had been hung up to disguise the flaking brown paint on the walls and the corrugated iron roof, and bright check tablecloths hid the rickety old folding tables. At one end of the room, a band played on the tiny stage, and half the village had packed in to enjoy themselves. From the corner by the buffet, the children glanced past Mrs. Bloomsbury Barton towards the door and gasped in amazement. For there, looking quite beautiful, in a white satin Victorian dress, was Aunt Sally, and at her side was Worzel Gummidge, dressed splendidly in purple and gold as an Elizabethan nobleman.
"Here, who is that fellow?" said Mr. Braithwaite with a puzzled expression. "I've seen him somewhere before."
John and Sue giggled at the idea of the farmer not recognizing his own Scarecrow, and then watched as Worzel Gummidge and Aunt Sally made their way stiffly to a spare pair of chairs near the bandstand.
"Right-yo," said the Scarecrow. "Now you put that there bag down where no one'll pinch it, and we'll get a dancing."
Aunt Sally looked at him witheringly.
"That's not how it's done. First of all, we sit down."
"Why for we sit down? Can't dance sitting down. Stands to reason."
"We sit down so that you can go and fetch me some refreshments."
"Refreshments, eh? What do you want, then? Plate full of buns?"
"Yes, but not a dinner plate full. There are some very grand people here. We must watch our manners."
"Right-yo,"
said Worzel Gummidge, and he set off for the buffet with great loping strides.
Is this where the buns is? Shift yourself then, missus,"
he growled, digging an elbow into Mrs. Bloomsbury Barton's side.
"Let the dog see the rabbit."
"Really?" she gasped to Mr. Peters. Some people. Still, they deserve one another, I suppose. No one with an ounce of breeding would look at that girl.
In only a few moments, Worzel Gummidge returned with his plates of buns.
May I have this dance?
He asked Aunt Sally.
You can't dance with 2 plates of buns, you stupid Scarecrow. Put them down.
What, and get them eaten by this lot of gannets? No fear. Yeah, you grab hold of my arms. Now then, 1, 3, 6, 1, 5, 2, 1, 4, 7.
They set off jerkily round the floor and looked so odd that the villagers began to laugh. Worzel's arms were stretched out straight and a plate of buns wobbled precariously in each hand while Aunt Sally clung to him with her arms around his waist, looking very worried.
You're not doing it properly,
she hissed.
Of course I'm not doing it properly. It's not a proper dance. They're playing the wrong kind of music. It's not what my dancing is used to at all.
Turn.
I can't turn.
You'll have to turn or we'll bump into the wall.
Oh, damnation, take it. All right, then. 1, 4, 6, 7, 4, 3. Turn,
he bellowed, swinging round in a desperate attempt to change direction. They spun round like a pair of tops joined together, with their stiff legs getting impossibly tangled, and with a crash they fell to the floor, throwing a shower of buns all over the hall. There was a roar of laughter and applause, and poor Aunt Sally began to weep.
I've never been so humiliated, she moaned later, when they'd managed to disentangle themselves and get back to their table.
Everyone else in the room was dancing now and enjoying themselves enormously, for the roar of laughter had put them all into an excellent mood.
But 'tweren't my fault, so it weren't. We wasn't dancing proper. All them newfangled tunes, me dancing head didn't recognize them.
You made me a laughing-stock.
Well, no more than I made 'em myself. We shouldn't have been doing that there dance at all. We should have been doing the Scarecrow hop.
I'm sure I don't know the Scarecrow hop.
Oh, yes, you do. You was at the Scarecrow's ball, same as what I was, and you danced the Scarecrow hop till your hinges seized up.
There was a sudden roll of drums before she could answer, and the band leader came forward with a greasy smile.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, a request number. Anyone got a request? You name it, we'll play it.
The Scarecrow hop.
The band leader shrugged.
All right, Squire, anything for a laugh. Scarecrow up, lads. Okay, in G.
As the band struck up, Worzel Gummidge bowed formally to Aunt Sally, who stood up and gave a stiff little curtsy in return. And to the amusement of the rest of the hall, who had all stopped dancing and gathered round to watch, he took her arm and led her in stately fashion to the dance floor, where they began to leap about to the bouncing music in a wild, extravagant dance, with their stiff legs suddenly supple and flexible. There was something infectious about the careering, raucous music. Sue dragged her brother onto the floor, and they started to copy the Scarecrow and Aunt Sally, stamping up and down, turning and bumping their bottoms together. A third couple joined in, and then a fourth, and suddenly the little village hall was packed with 100 people, all doing the Scarecrow hop. All too soon the dance came to an end, and the villagers gave Aunt Sally and Worzel Gummidge a massive round of applause, cheering and shouting for more.
Oh, Worzel, they're clapping me.
Of course they are, Aunt Sally, 'cause you dances like a duchess.
And you dance like a duke. Oh, this is the happiest moment of my life.
That's 'cause you dance with old Worzel. Will you marry me, Aunt Sally?
Oh, I will, Worzel, she breathed, with her eyes gleaming. Oh, yes, I will.
In the hour before dawn, when all the world was still and even the owls were quiet, the Scarecrow trudged through the half-light across the damp fields to where the woods were thickest at the foot of the hills. There was a single light showing at the window of one of the downstairs rooms. The Crowman's strange house awaited him. "Morning, Worzel," said the Crowman as he entered. "I hear you wants to get married."
Ah, bless my soul. How did you know that, your worship, sir?
"I know all about you, Worzel. I made you, remember?"
Oh, you did, Mr. Crowman, sir, and I thanks you for that from the bottom of my stomach.
"And do you think that Aunt Sally would be the right wife for you?"
Oh, that she would, sir. You should see her and me dancing, your Iron Martinez.
The Crowman looked stern and sad at the same time. "Life isn't all dancing, Worzel."
Ah, it will be for us, Mr. Crowman, sir, singing and dancing and singing all our livelong days, and never a cross word.
"With Aunt Sally?" laughed the Crowman. who knew very well how they behaved.
Well, we might knock one another sideways once in a while, but we don't mean no harm by it. We're a pair, sir, Your Honour, sir, made for each other, as you might say.
The crowman's eyes flashed with a sudden fire. But you weren't made for each other, Worzel. I didn't make Aunt Sally.
Ah, but you give her the gift of walking and talking, your magicianship, sir. That I do know.
Yes, sighed the crowman, and sometimes I wish I hadn't. Your dancing Ed's determined to get married, then, is it?
Oh, 'tis that, your majesty, sir.
What do your other Eds have to say about it?
Oh, they'll do as they'm told, sir.
I'm sure they will. Very well, Worzel, sighed the crowman, reaching for his tall hat. On your own Eds be it. He opened the door and led the Scarecrow out into the dawn light. Later the same morning, after breakfast, John and Sue ambled out into the yard and saw, to their horror, Mr. Braithwaite and Mr. Shepherd going into the barn. God bless my soul, cried the farmer as the children raced after them. Mr. Shepherd gaped at the figure of Aunt Sally lying stiffly on her bale of straw. What's that doing there? That's my Aunt Sally, that is. Mr. Braithwaite turned to John and Sue. Now then, what do you two know about this? Oh, nothing, Mr. Braithwaite, protested Sue. We didn't bring her here, honest. That's a valuable antique, that is, growled Mr. Shepherd. Not a blooming doll. If my Aunt Sally's damaged, you'll know all about it. From a corner of the cowsheds, Worzel Gummidge and the crowman watched as Mr. Shepherd stumped angrily out of the yard with Aunt Sally over his shoulder, muttering gruffly to himself, and laid her carefully in the back of his van.
Can't you stop him, Mr. Crowman, sir?
The crowman shook his head as the van pulled away. Too late, I'm afraid, Worzel. Too late.
Oh, where's he taking her to, Mr. Crowman, sir?
Where she'll be happy, Worzel, my friend. Back to her attic.
Happy, sir? In a freezing cold and dark little attic?
Oh, yes, Worzel. For that's where she dreams her dreams. Of going to Egypt, and Romania, and marrying a duke, and riding in a gold coach. She wouldn't find those things out in the cruel world, you know, Worzel.
I suppose not, Mr. Crowman, sir, your worship. But she found me, though, didn't she? She found old Worzel.
She did indeed. And she'll remember the night she danced with you and everyone clapped and cheered. In her mind, she'll turn that draughty old village hall into a palace with chandeliers and footmen. And instead of a scarecrow, she'll be dancing with the Duke of Romania.
Well, that's what she said I was, Mr. Crowman, sir. And her, my Duchess.
The crowman nodded. There's a whole magic kingdom of that wooden head of hers, Worzel. So let Aunt Sally keep her dreams, eh?
Well, what about me, sir? What about old Worzel?
The crowman's eyes twinkled as he looked into the Scarecrow's. Don't you have a magic kingdom? He asked softly.
I reckon I have, sir. When I'm guarding that there 10-acre field, Mr. Crowman, sir, I gets to thinking. The seasons comes and goes, and them fledglings grows up into pesky girt rooks. And there ain't nobody knows what's going on inside that head of mine.
Nobody but you and me, Worzel, smiled the crowman. Now, come along. It's time you were a scarecrow again.
Yes, sir. Mr. Crowman, sir,
replied Worzel Gummidge. And in the little lane they bowed ceremoniously to one another, raising their hats and sweeping them low and wide. John and Sue caught up with the Scarecrow just as he was about to climb the stile into 10-acre field.
Worzel, cried Sue, we're sorry. We tried to stop him.
It don't matter,
replied the Scarecrow bravely.
It's like what the Crowman says. We're better off. Her dreaming her dreams, and me dreaming mine.
He glared fiercely at a fat black crow that flapped into his field. Shove off, he bellowed, clambering down from the stile to chase the startled bird. The children watched as he marched with dignity back to his pole, stretched out his arms, stiffened, and became a scarecrow once more.